This week on London Real, we have the security advisor Marc Goodman, author of Future Crimes, A Journey to the Dark Side of Technology.
I'm talking about things that are happening now, criminals that are using robotics, criminals that are using artificial intelligence, criminals that are playing with the Internet of Things. The bad guys care about your iPhone more than you do.
Everything is connected, everyone is vulnerable, and what we can do about it.
Everything in our physical world will be hackable. So we see criminals playing with artificial intelligence, robotics, and the like, and some of these organizations are really sophisticated. Those who pursue security at the risk of liberty will have neither.
London Real presents Marc Goodman, Future Crimes.
The Internet of Things is just going to be the Internet of Things to hack.
This week on London Real, my guest is Marc Goodman, and he's the author of a book called Future Crimes, A Journey to the Dark Side of Technology. Marc is a fascinating guy. He's actually an ex-LAPD officer. Then he was the futurist in residence for the FBI. Now he works for Interpol. He's also got degrees from Harvard. He is a fascinating guy. I would say this is one of the episodes that just flowed from beginning to end. We were just riffing back and forth with each other. You might remember Marc from a very famous TED Talk he gave where he walked through some of the darker sides of technology. One of them was the shootings that happened in Mumbai and how these 20 gentlemen with the use of technology took over a city of 20 million people and just ran havoc over the whole thing because of their use of technology. He also talks about, cell towers and entire cell phone networks that are created by the narco drug lords in Mexico, and all of these aspects of technology that we don't always see, when we read TechCrunch and we see the bright side. And so I talked to Marc very much in depth, and also, asked him quite frankly, are you kind of scaring us with these things, or are these things we can use, to help us in the future? He's a very smart guy, definitely someone to watch. We're going to see some big things from him in the future. Some big books and probably some really great thoughts, because he's more than just taking a surface look at these things, and he's got real deep knowledge. And quite honestly, we just had a great time talking, and I think I'm going to stay in touch with Marc. I think I'll see him when I go out in LA, and I think you'd be really fascinated by this. And I believe we're also giving away 5 copies of his book to the best quotes tweeted from this episode. So, get your computer out, get that keyboard out, and start sending those out to us. It's a fantastic read, and I really think you're going to enjoy everything Marc has to say, and a great perspective. It's something we like to touch on here at London Real, these kind of issues of technology, the dark web, which he jumps into as well. So really loving that, and I'm just, I think you're going to really enjoy this one with Marc. We are having a ridiculously sunny spring day in London. And for those of you that haven't been to the UK, when the sun comes out here, everyone gets a little crazy, and big smiles happen, the pubs get crowded out into the streets, and it's a lot of fun, especially for a day in April. So we're enjoying this much, and I'm just kind of loving this feel. For those of you that have been asking, that said, Brian, I just want to watch the full episode, nice and simple. It's so easy. All you have to do is sign up for our VIP club, which involves your email and your name, and we will send you, before anyone else, a full copy of the episode to your email. I think it's like 11 a.m. on Sunday, and so you can just click on the link. You can watch the entire thing, no problem. So get on that list. If you're not getting that email, it's going to your spam folder, or it's not going to the right inbox in Gmail, move it to your primary folder, and you'll get it every day right there. So be on to that, and that way, you can enjoy frictionlessly London Real. Also, I hope you guys are enjoying my vlogs. I've got what I read, what I eat, how I train, and Ask Me Anything. It's a little crazy creating this much content, but it's actually a lot of fun, so thank you for bearing with me. If you haven't already, please click on the subscribe button below, because you'll get the full episodes and all of my vlogs and stuff straight to you, and it tells YouTube that we actually have something here, which makes them treat us a little bit nicer. So there you go. I hope you're enjoying everything. I hope you're enjoying hearing more about the studio remake. We're having a makeover here. You're going to see more of that coming soon. London Real Academy, there'll be some more knowledge to you dropping about that. I'll be sending out an email soon. Very exciting stuff there. And as usual, send me something, Brian at londonreal.com. londonreal.tv. We've also got guest suggestion page at londonreal.tv/guests for all of your needs there, and appreciate that. And a final shout out to the boys at Bulletproof. This is the coffee that I drink every single day. I serve to all of my guests at London Real. It's a coffee that's free of molds and toxins. You mix it up with grass-fed butter and some brain octane oil, and boom, it's the way to start your day. I think I've been doing this now for 2 years. Every single person I serve it to loves it on the show. So get involved. There's also the Bulletproof Diet book and some more exciting things coming from those guys very soon. So thank you. Big love. I hope you're having a wonderful summer and sunshine wherever you are in the world. And you're going to love this show. So sit back, relax, and watch as I melt wax. Don't ever let a brother like me write a dope track. All right, that was Ice-T, but here's Marc Goodman. Peace. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Marc Goodman, who is a security advisor, futurist, and author of Future Crimes, A Journey to the Dark Side of Technology and How to Survive It. Marc, you've spent a career in law enforcement, from police officer to futurist in residence with the FBI and senior advisor to Interpol. You focus on the disruptive impact of advancing technologies on security, business, and international affairs. Marc, welcome to London Real.
Thank you, Brian. It's my pleasure to be here.
You know, this book is filled with so many concepts, from nanotechnology to Moore's law, trying to catch up with Google and our data and information. I don't really know where to start, but one thing that hit me about the book and about your TED Talk is this whole concept of scale that I think our human brains maybe have a hard time, really dealing with. And when you talked about on your TED Talk, from the 10 guys in Mumbai shutting down a city of 20 million, or a few people hacking 100 million Sony accounts, it's just something that I don't even know if we can comprehend. We've created technologies that we don't even know what it will do to us. Is that a good message? Am I getting the right message from you?
That's one of the messages in the book. Obviously, there's a lot of information contained in it, but scale is key, right? When people think about crime, they don't understand that there's a fundamental shift going on right now. Back in the old days, robbery used to be a one-on-one affair, right? If I wanted to be a robber, I'd go out and get a knife or a gun, hide in a dark alley, and say, stick them up. Great business model, be your own boss, set your own hours, don't have to worry about any permits. But as somebody who knows business, what's the problem with that business model?
It doesn't scale.
It doesn't scale. So criminals figured out ways to make their business model scale. The first technology that kind of helped them was the train. When they created the locomotive, nobody thought train robberies, but of course criminals saw the opportunities, and now they could rob 200 people at a time. Fast forward today to the internet, right? And we can see, in a world where everybody's connected, to one extent or another, everybody's vulnerable, and criminals can go out there and get them. You mentioned the Sony PlayStation hack, over 100 million accounts hacked. Recently we had the Target hack, over 100 million accounts. So the actual paradigm of what crime means and how it's carried out is completely shifted from a one-on-one affair to 1 to 100 million. And the numbers will grow and grow and grow because we're increasingly interconnected. So nobody's ever been able to steal 1 million, let alone 100 million of anything. And now that becomes possible due to our interconnectedness.
Right. One of the things you also say is you're not the customer, you're the product. And you talk about these quote unquote free services that, again, is a cognitive bias. We can't see what's really going on there. Educate me. What does that really mean?
So often I give public talks and I say, hey, who here is a customer of Facebook? And everybody raises their hand. And I say, well, how much do you pay for it? And they go, it's free. I'm like, no, it's not free. And as a matter of fact, you're not the customer, you're the product, right? You are the thing that Facebook sells to its real customers, and other companies do this as well. But all social media that's free, you are paying with your data, you're paying with your privacy. That's the cost of entry. And so when you're there dutifully filling out your Facebook profile, tagging all of your friends, using the facial recognition in the photos, you're plotting your locations, listing your birthdays, clicking like, you are further refining and refining and refining your profile so that Facebook can hit you up with near perfect ad targeting. So you're doing that work for free, which means that Facebook's 1.3 billion users around the world are the largest unpaid workforce in the history of humanity. That's why you get free status updates and Mark Zuckerberg has hundreds of billions of dollars in his bank account, right? That's the trade-off that you make.
Right. You did advisory work for the FBI. A lot of people said that, if Facebook couldn't have even been created by a government to be so intrusive into your lives, and now we openly give all that information?
There's a great Onion article that was written. It was actually an Onion video where they called Mark Zuckerberg before Congress and they awarded him like the Congressional Medal of Intelligence for creating Facebook. It was all a big joke, of course, but they had a fake CIA official testify. And it's like, the Operation Facebook is the smartest thing we ever invented. We can't believe that people go out there voluntarily and fill out all this data. So it was all the Onion News, like a joke news site, but it was rather funny and convincing.
Right. I want to get in later as far as what you think people should do to stay secure on the web. I know you have some updates and some acronyms. I want to ask you about that. But, a lot of people are asking you about this concept of singularity and what it means to you, what it means to other people. I had Jason Silva on here a year and a half ago.
He's awesome. I want to
Yeah.
stop and say that. He's awesome.
Yeah, he is great. And he was talking about it early on. But I think to the average person on the street, you say that word and they won't know really what it means. And I was wondering if you could tell what it means to you and what it means to some other people.
Sure. So I teach at Singularity University, which was co-founded by Ray Kurzweil, who has advanced this idea of sort of a technological singularity, and Peter Diamandis, the other co-founder as well. Basically, it has to do with Moore's law. And the fact of the matter is, Gordon Moore, the founder of the Intel computer chip company, says computer processing power is doubling every 18 to 24 months. So that, Pentium 1 chip, 18 months later, the Pentium 2 will be twice as fast, and 3 times, and then 4 times as fast, and 8 times, and 16. So it's a constant doubling of computer processing power. And you can take that and it goes up like a curve, right? So most of society is linear. We think linearly. If we go back to when we were on the plains of the Serengeti and we would look at the lion 100 meters away, and we do a quick calculation, can outrun the lion. Our brains think linearly, but now with technology doubling, we see the power, we live the power of exponentials. To put it in real terms, if I take 30 steps linearly, one right after the other, I might get from here to the front door. But if I take 30 steps exponentially, doubling the distance that I travel with every step, I get from here to the moon. So that's the power of exponentials. And because technology follows Moore's law, the power of the tech that we have today vastly exceeds that of what we had last year or 10 years ago. So that iPhone 6 that most people are carrying in their pocket today has more computing cycles on that smartphone than was available to all of NASA during the Apollo 11 launch. Right? Think about that. Like, we put a man on the moon, we did flight navigation, we did all of that with less computing power than you have in your pocket today. So what will that iPhone 7 be, the iPhone 8, the iPhone 12, the iPhone 14? So if the technological singularity, if you keep on doubling, we've now worked out a way to basically manage the processing power of brains. So we know how much sort of petaflops, how many petaflops of data an insect's brain can process, and then a mouse's brain, and then a dog's brain, and eventually the human brain. And so Ray Kurzweil has done his calculations. He's looked at the number of petaflops, and he said, okay, we now know the processing capacity of the human brain. And he said, at current trends, Moore's law, by 2035, 2045, we should go hit an equilibrium where the human brain has as much processing power as your desktop computer. Except that desktop computer, 18 months later, will be twice as smart, and then 4 times as smart. So if you take this to its natural extension, the belief is that, by the end of the next century or this century, we may have a computer on your desk that has the computer processing power of all human brains on the planet due to the nature of exponentials. And what does that world look like? Folks like Nick Bostrom and others, they've written about this. They've called it's kind of this leads to machine learning and artificial intelligence. And the belief is that this might be man's last invention. The scary people that talk about it, or the people that are afraid of it, say, well, when you see a spider or an ant on the floor, you don't even think of it. You just step on it if it's walking around your apartment, and you crush it because it has, you don't think of it as a person. It has no brain. And so the fear is that as these AIs develop, will be the ants to them. That's the scary version. Elon Musk has talked about that. He's called artificial intelligence more dangerous than nukes. And Stephen Hawking and Bill Gates. Stephen Hawking recently said that he believes that artificial general intelligence, sort of the AI that runs the world, runs all the systems, that will be potentially the end of the human race. And as humans, we may want to think about that a little bit. Some people say it's all overstated. I attended a very interesting conference at Google on artificial general intelligence, and half of the audience said, we need to create AGI because human beings can't be trusted, and they're going to launch nuclear weapons, and they do terrible things, so we kind of need to write a script that will control people from all this warfare and the like. And other people say, oh, yes, this is called the HAL 9000, right? Or we've seen this before in the Terminator and other movies, and it doesn't end well. So that's the broad overview on the singularity. Whether or not you like it, many people think it's coming nonetheless.
Right. You talk about some ominous scenarios in this
Sorry
book.
for the long answer.
No, that's a great answer.
Complex.
That's the best answer I've heard on singularity before.
Well, thanks.
So I kind of understand it better now. But you talk about a lot of, scary ideas in the future, and as far as, our technology being hacked and the dangers that we have. And some would say it's almost scaremongering. You talk about the singularity, and it's like, what's going to happen? Are we going to be ruined as a human race? What is your ultimate idea with this book? Is it to show all of these possibilities that we need to worry about? Would you rather overdo it with some of the bad possibilities so we take some action?
Right. So my goal certainly was not to scare. I really want to be clear on that. If somebody told you, hey, Brian, when you leave your house in the morning, lock your door, close your front door and lock it because you might be burglarized, you would say, hey, I don't, don't scare me. I don't want to think about that. When you drive your car down to the mall or to Starbucks, you might walk away and leave the windows down and the keys. And I'd say, hey, Brian, somebody goes, I don't want to hear about the stolen car. I don't want to live in that fearful world. But we do that every day in the physical world, right? We do take steps to protect ourselves. We don't walk down dark alleys with scary looking people. So it's just common sense. And I quote Carl Sagan in the book, who says he'd much rather understand the world as it is, basically, so he can deal with it. I'm slightly misquoting, but understand the world as it is rather than have a fantasy of what we'd like it to be. So my goal is to talk about things that are actually occurring now. And it's not like scary future stuff. I'm talking about things that are happening now, criminals that are using robotics, criminals that are using artificial intelligence, criminals that are playing with the Internet of Things. All of that is happening now. William Gibson, in his novel Neuromancer, famously said, the future has already arrived, it's just unevenly distributed. So the book is called Future Crimes because these are the things that I saw in my professional law enforcement career and my work in security, and I'm sharing them with the world, not to frighten them. That's the last thing that I want to do. I want to empower people. When I was a cop, it said on the police car on the side, to protect and serve, and we took an oath of office, and I took that quite seriously, and I still do. I want to be able to help protect people. I'm motivated by that. It's kind of like what drives me in life, and it makes me kind of nuts when I see innocent people, whether they be children, old people, young, it doesn't make a difference. They get victimized by others, whether it be through child pornography, sexual exploitation of children, or a senior citizen having their life savings stolen, right? That is wrong in my book, and pretty black and white wrong. So I'm trying to educate people. So the goal here is, in an entertaining, fun, and often funny way, tell people stories, criminal tales of what's happening now to set the stage, because most people aren't seeing the threat as I'm seeing it, right? That's the beauty of sort of this exponential mind or exponential way of thinking, is that when you look at the media today, they talk about cybercrime as if these were one-off events. Oh, Target got hacked, Sony got hacked, JP Morgan Chase got hacked, and it's kind of like they're calling plays on a football field, right? But these aren't individual acts. These are the new normal. Everything is being connected to the internet, and it's all hackable. And I'm trying to draw attention to that so we can think through how we progress into this next stage of humanity.
Right. When you were speaking with Dave Asprey on his show, you said there are those who have been hacked and those who don't know they've been hacked.
Yeah.
Is it really that simple, as far as there is so much of your data that's been compromised that you don't know what you don't know?
Yeah, exactly. The big difference between like auto theft, for example, if you go to your garage in the morning and your car is stolen, or if you live in Manhattan, you go downstairs and your bike is gone, you notice it. Like, you had one bike, now you have minus one bike. That's something you pick up on. The difference with internet crime and cyber attacks and data breaches is you don't know that the criminals are there. There's a statistic from the U.S. Secret Service and Verizon that I quote, that only 6% of data breaches are uncovered by a company's system administrator. That means 94% of the time when your system has been hacked at work, I'm talking about in the corporate world yet, 94% of the time, the company isn't the one who discovers it. It's because the FBI comes knocking at the door. It's because your customers call up and complain. You have a rash of identity thefts with them. So our ability to determine this threat is very, very low. Another statistic in the book is that the average time to discovery from a network breach when the hackers get in until you realize it in the Fortune 500 is 211 days. So for 7 months, the bad guys are in your system, they're installing backdoors, they're roaming around, stealing your intellectual property, and you have no idea. So the old paradigm of cybersecurity is we'll build tall fences, we'll create firewalls and antivirus systems, and we'll keep people out. The new reality is they're already there. You need to go proactively hunt them to kick them out.
Right. You made a comparison to the immune system, the human immune system,
Yeah.
that if you didn't know that these invaders were in your body, then you would be dead. Is that?
Yeah, people say, well, it's okay, I use antivirus, and I'm sorry to say, but you should know that, a meta-study was done of 40 different antivirus companies, and for new cyber threats, they only have a 5% detection rate. 5% of new viruses are detected by antivirus software. So the joke was, if your own immune system worked like that, you'd be dead in 24 hours.
Right. Bit of a philosophical question came from someone, and they asked you, if public ignorance or apathy, is that an important factor on which future we get, either utopia or dystopia? I thought this would be a perfect question for you.
That is a perfect question. It's an excellent question. And I think that's kind of the heart of the book. Whoever asked the question just kind of cut to the center of things. Because right before us, and I started out the book this way, if you remember the Matrix, it's like the red pill and the blue pill. You can choose to ignore all of this stuff, like call me, we don't believe this, or we don't care, or it's fear-mongering. I don't want to believe it. Whether or not you want to believe it, it's happening, it's going on. There are 1,600 footnotes in the book. Even though it's a fun read, it kind of reads like sci-fi. It's all backed up by CNN, New York Times, Harvard University studies, all of that stuff. So that is the fundamental question. People say, oh, you're fear-mongering and you don't like tech. That's bullshit. Can I say bullshit?
Yeah, you just did.
Okay, right. That's bull. I love tech, right? I'm a technophile. I work in Silicon Valley. I think technology can be awesome. It has the potential in the next coming decades to bring 2 billion people out of poverty. We're going to radically extend life, as some of your other guests have talked about. Reduce infant mortality drastically. Okay, we can now educate people. If you're a Maasai living in the plains of the Serengeti or somewhere in Nairobi, you can have a $30 tablet and take free classes at MIT or Harvard or Oxford, right? Yeah. Through online learning. So the technology is awesome, but there are other people that understand technology. Governments understand technology. Corporations understand technology. Criminals and even terrorists understand technology. And often they have a deeper and more profound understanding of technology than you do. And therefore, they can use it in ways that you can't. Recently, this metaphor came to me. I was thinking about priests in the Middle Ages. And priests in the Middle Ages could read the book. There was only one book in the day. It was the Bible. And the priests would come down from the mountains like, we have the Word of God, and we're here to tell the masses what God said. And so those that could read, those that were literate, had the power of God, in their hands and can tell the masses what's going on. I just realized we have a new version of that. It's coders, right? 2 types of people in the world, those that code and those that don't. Those that don't are the new illiterate. So we've heard stories in the news about Lenovo laptops, having spyware on it, or Samsung televisions spying on people and things like that. And people are like, I can't believe they're doing that. I can't believe they're hacked. Well, why are you surprised? They know how the code works. The companies that make you sign these 10, 20,000 word terms of service, terms of agreement, they know what's going on. You don't. So the game is rigged against you by companies, by countries, and by criminals. So my point in the book is that we can have a very bright future with all of this technology. It can be amazing. But that bright future is not going to come for free. We're going to have to work our asses off because the bad guys care about your iPhone more than you do. And as long as they understand how the OS works, and as long as they understand the baseband, and as long as they can play with the radio frequencies and the Bluetooth and the near-field communication, and all you can do is play Angry Birds and Words with Friends, don't be surprised if somebody uses the tools in your hand, in your kitchen, in your home, in your body against you. Right. So that's what I'm calling for. Yeah. That better technological future.
Right. I mean, so let's talk about the bad guys for a second. Let's talk. The government is a whole issue. Google's another issue. But let's talk about the bad guys because you've shown pictures of these, cell phone towers in Mexico that were built and designed by these drug cartels and some other just massive amounts of, intellect that we normally don't associate with criminals. We just think they're the petty criminals or the small hacks. But these are very intelligent, highly developed organizations organizations. It would make sense they would have R&D budgets. It's just I never saw that before.
Right.
What should we be paying attention to there?
That's the beauty of, I mean, that's why I also want to bring this story to people, because I spent a career in law enforcement. I saw these things firsthand, and that's why I want people, again, not to be afraid. I want them to be educated and therefore empowered. If they know what they're up against, then they can take steps to protect themselves, and that's all I'm after. So you talked about cell phone towers in Mexico. 20 years ago, when I was a street cop, we saw criminals using 5-pound mobile phones long before any cop ever had them. Fast forward to today, in Mexico, the narcos have actually built their own telephone company. They basically have a nationwide parallel radio telecommunications network that's encrypted and extends to all 31 states. So to avoid being snooped on by the Mexican government or the police or the DEA, they've built their own mobile phone network. You talk about R&D budgets. Some of the narcos, for example, down in Colombia, have a $5 million annual R&D budget for robotics. They want to be able to deliver thousands of kilos and tons of cocaine into the United States and North America by autonomous submarines. They're starting to use drones down in Mexico. The narco groups there are recruiting from the finest schools of civil aeronautics and aviation to pick the top students to design drones for them that can carry hundreds of pounds of dope. These are not the quadcopters. These are fixed-wing drone aircraft that are crashing and flying in the border. We just had one crash about 2 weeks ago coming over the border from Mexico into Texas. This was a quadcopter. It was carrying 12 pounds of methamphetamine, but the copter was only rated for 6 pounds of methamphetamine, so it crashed on the border. So we see criminals playing with artificial intelligence, robotics, and the like. And some of these organizations are really sophisticated. I tell the tale of one company called Innovative Marketing in Ukraine. Looked like a completely legitimate business. They had a CFO, they had a CEO, they had quality assurance, they had an SEO team, a translation team, customer service, HR. What was their product? Many of your viewers will probably have the windows pop up where they get the big virus warning. You've got a virus, click here to get rid of it, pay $49 or 49 pounds, download the antivirus product, and your problem goes away and you get access again to your computer. Otherwise, it's locked up and you can't do anything. So Innovative Marketing was one of the companies that created this antivirus solution. And hundreds of thousands of people around the world in 60 countries downloaded it. Except their antivirus solution wasn't so much an antivirus solution as it was a virus solution. So you never really had a virus. They hijacked your browser. They socially engineered you into downloading this. Then you got the real viruses. Then you got the malware. Oh, and by the way, you just gave your credit card to organized crime. So Innovative Marketing Solutions, it was a 3-story building in Kiev, Ukraine. They had a receptionist at the front desk. What did HR do there? They recruited in more criminals to do sales. What did the CFO do there? They did money laundering of all the currency. Customer service issued receipts to give it this veil of legitimacy. And then the funny part was quality assurance would go out there and make sure that they tested their software, not to make sure that it worked, but to make sure that antivirus couldn't catch it. So before they released their malware on the marketplace, they would test it against 200 antivirus programs to release it out. At their height, before the Bureau took them down and Interpol came in and arrested some of the low-level players, the 2 guys who founded it are still on the lam and missing. But before they went ahead and took it down, they added up all of the receipts, and in just 3 years, they did $500 million worth of business, and they identified at least 600 employees at Innovative Marketing. So yes, it's quite organized.
They're a business. They're a great businessmen, right?
Exactly.
What's your read on the dark web and the Silk Road? I listened to some things that you said about it and some of the things the goods there and some of the breakdown. We had a gentleman here named Jamie Bartlett who had a book called Inside the Darknet. And he noticed that actually because of the peer review system, the customer service on the Silk Road is quite impressive and self-policing. And so I wonder what you thought of in general dark web, Silk Road, and those kind of strange phenomenons that might be around a market you wouldn't expect.
Right. So I spent a couple of chapters going deep into the deep web and then the dark web. Some people confuse the terms. The dark web is actually a subset of the deep web. When people search Google, they think, I'm going to search Google and it will show me anything. But it's actually not true. Most of us spend our time on what's called the surface web, and maybe he got into this. The surface web is the bits where we look at the BBC or YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Amazon. Most Most people will spend their time there. But there's a whole other part of the internet that Google does not index, and that's called the deep web. So if you think like back when you were in college, those academic databases, LexisNexis, things like that, things that are behind paywalls, those are often not indexed by Google. As it turns out, as a matter of fact, according to a study in Nature magazine that I write about in Future Crimes, Google actually only indexes 16% of the surface web and 0% of the deep web, which means that when you're searching Google, you're actually only getting access to 0.03% of the digital information on our planet. So we're on Google and we think it shows us everything, but you need to know where to go to find those other bits, right? It's as if you were fishing in the ocean, only on the top 2 feet of the ocean and missing the Marianas Trench of data that's underneath it. So with specialized tools, you can get into this deep web, which is 500 times larger than the surface web, according to the same Nature study. So let's go a bit deeper into this. Most of the data in the deep web, as I said, is proprietary business information. But beyond that, there's a subset of data known as the dark web. And here is where criminals ply their trade. You talked about the Silk Road, perfect example. In order to access that Silk Road, you required a special tool, a special browser called Tor, or the Onion Router. Many of your viewers may be familiar with that, but what they might not know is Tor was actually created by the U.S. government, the Department of Navy.
I didn't know that till I heard you say it.
Yeah, so it was created to help democracy activists overseas. The U.S. government gave it to human rights activists in China and Iran and Syria so that they could bypass the national firewalls and communicate with other human rights activists and tell their plight to the world. It came with excellent encryption. Criminals saw that and say, excellent encryption, we can use that. And now they have. So once you launch the Tor browser that you can download, it's downloaded tens of thousands of times, you can download that, you can put in a special address. So rather than having a .com address, it'll have a .onion address, and it's a very long address. And you can put in the Silk Road address, and it would take you to what was, in effect, an eBay for drugs and weapons and child pornography and all of these sort of illicit goods, stolen passports, diplomatic passports. There are other bits of the dark web out there where you can get everything from trafficking in human beings to hire an assassin and the like.
Right,
So
along with counterfeit versions of all of those.
Counterfeit versions of everything.
Right. And then, of course, there's the Bitcoin transaction process and all that.
Exactly.
That kind of leaks around. Do you look at, what is your view on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies?
So I think both for Tor and Bitcoin, there are those in government and law enforcement say, bad, good, stop, must stop it, we regulate, stop. I'm not in that camp, right? There are legitimate uses for Tor, as I just mentioned, and there are completely legitimate uses for Bitcoin, right? Lots of good reasons to use that, to have those types of transactions and cryptocurrencies in general. That said, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin were, the preferred way to shop, the only way to shop on the Silk Road, and there are cousins of Bitcoin that are purposefully dark web focus. So there's something called Dark Wallet, which was created specifically not to come with any of the niceties of Bitcoin, not to be regulated like Bitcoin, but specifically to hide transactions from the government, to facilitate the purchase of weapons, drugs, and the like, sort of created by crypto anarchists. So there are probably over 200, 300, 400, 500 cryptocurrencies out there, of which Bitcoin is the most famous. I think there's could be lots of legitimate uses for those. I'll give you but one that was discussed by a gentleman from the World Bank, who's like, hey, if you're working really hard in America to send money back to your family in Guatemala or Mexico, Western Union's going to take a big chunk of all that you send back. And he had a thought for global development, which is that if we could cut out that middleman and make it easy for that, gardener in Los Angeles to send money back to his family in Oaxaca, then we could vastly increase their wealth by taking that 10, 20, whatever percent out away. So Bitcoin could be something that theoretically could do that. So I can see the legitimate, but clearly you can also see the abuses as well.
Right. Internet of Things.
Yes.
What's your read on that for people that might not know what the Internet of Things is? Maybe you could give them a quick rundown. It's funny, I had one of the Cisco CTOs in here, and Cisco coined it as the Internet of Everything, and that's their new marketing strategy for the next decade, which is fascinating. But, you must see so many possibilities with the Internet of Things, and not all
sure.
of them good.
Yeah, for sure. So the Internet of Things, for those who don't know, are connecting physical objects to the Internet. Cisco calls it the Internet of Everything. I think GE calls it the Industrial Internet. Different companies have different names for it. But here's something that people need to know that, as an introduction to the concept. We think we're living in advanced technological times, right? We look about and it's like, wow, I've got my GoPro and all these digital cameras. I've got a DVR, GPS in my car. I've got a smart television. I've got my laptop, my iPhone. They think, wow, oh my God, technological pinnacle. Not at all. We are just in the first seconds of the first minutes of the first hours of the first days of this internet revolution. And what's coming next will blow our mind. And this is, again, where the exponential thinking comes in. Today, we use kind of as the protocol, the language that the internet itself speaks is called Internet Protocol. We use Internet Protocol version 4. That's the routing mechanism for the data packet. So if you think about a telephone, right? A telephone area code in New York City, you punch in the area code, the call gets routed to New York, then to the right borough, then to the right house. That's our phone numbers work. But eventually we ran out of 212 area codes in New York City because we had more phones than allotable space in our numbers. So we created 718 and 646 and 917. We had to break it. The same thing has happened with the internet. The addressable space, that 192.168.1.1, we've run out of space. The Internet Protocol version 4 can support about 4.5 billion devices communicating simultaneously. We have more than that already now. So we needed to create Internet Protocol version 6. I don't know what happened to 5. Nobody does, but we skipped over. With Internet Protocol version 6, which is set to be widely adopted in the next few years, we're going to go from 4.5 billion simultaneous connections to 78 octillion. That is 78 billion possible things connected to the internet and communicating at the same time. Just to give a sense of what that scale is, according to nature, again, there are 10 to the 19th grains of sand on planet Earth. You could take every grain of sand on this planet and assign it 1 trillion internet IP addresses with IPv6. So you get the capacity that we're building. What does that mean? It means that using things like Bluetooth, RFID, near-field communication, and the like, we are going to be connecting every physical object on our planet to the internet one way or the other. That means pets, plates, prisoners, children, forks, toasters, televisions, cars, pacemakers, airplanes, coffee cups. Everything will have an IP address and be online. And so that will bring, tremendous conveniences one way or the other. You can have the cool smart TV. You can walk into the house and the smartphone will know you're there and it'll turn the house to the right temperature. You can control, your temperature in your home with the Nest over your iPhone and do cool things like that. The right music will play. It'll draw the bath for you. When you run out of milk, it'll reorder it and Amazon drone will come and bring it to your house. So that's the very lovely picture of the Internet of Things. But my concern about it is that there's a lot more things that we need to protect once you connect this many more devices. Cisco has estimated by the year 2020, we will connect 50 billion new devices to the net. And Intel computer company is more aggressive. They say by 2020, we'll have 200 billion new devices on the net. We can't even protect the laptops and servers and smartphones that we have online today. So for me, the Internet of Things is just going to be the Internet of Things to hack. It's just more targets for people to go after, much of which will be automated. And I can go into lots of examples of things that already have been hacked that you wouldn't expect.
Baby cameras. There's a large number of wearable devices in America that are connected, right?
Absolutely. So we tend to think of, this is where people, again, we think we're in a technological pinnacle. We're just starting.
I always think of Mad Men. If you watch the versions of Mad Men, they're in 1964 and they get a new computer for the office or the color TV and they're like, oh, technology, it's changing our lives.
I know.
And they have the same conversations we have. And so it just always seems to be a perspective
In one episode,
thing.
didn't the guy go and attack the computer? Like one guy went crazy be on the show because the computers are coming.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that to some extent, right? That they thought they were at a technological pinnacle, and then you would, I remember the first time I got a cassette recorder, I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. Or the first digital watch. So we've all been through this, right? Then we have remote controls, and it's just constantly changing. So some of the things that will be going online, of course, are hackable. You mentioned baby monitors and future crimes. There's a lot of stories in there I think that would be of interest to parents, but I tell the story of one family in Ohio that 3 o'clock in the morning, they're fast asleep, and all of a sudden the mom and dad hear a man's voice in their house, and he's screaming their baby's name, Jessica, Jessica, I'm gonna kill you, you bitch. The parents are like, what the hell is going on? There's a man in their house. They go running into their daughter's bedroom, and the baby cam that's sitting there all of a sudden turns and focuses on the dad. They freak out. They pull the plug. Turns out that the baby cam was hacked. The daughter's name, the infant daughter's name, Jessica, was painted over the crib so they could see that. And some crazy guy just broke in and started yelling at their kids. So the cameras that we think might protect us can actually be used against us. I tell a story of the Crown Casino in Melbourne, Australia. Big casino, somebody pulled basically an Ocean's 11. They hacked the cameras, the security cameras of the casino. They sent their guy in, a whale, a big fish. He played poker for 24 hours and walked away with $33.5 million. How did he do it? They hacked the cameras. He had an earpiece. His comrades could see the cards that the dealers were holding, and they just told them how to bet based upon the dealer's hand. It's not just cameras, of course. We've had refrigerators that are hacked, that have become part of botnets. There's an interesting story that you may be aware of now with the Samsung televisions. I'm not sure if you heard about this.
No, I don't think so.
So here in the UK, Samsung's created smart TVs. All manufacturers have smart TVs, connect to the internet. But previously, you had to control your smart television with a remote control. Talk about madman days, right? Mm-hmm. For modern people, like a remote control is way too much work because you have to push a button. You could accidentally burn a billionth of a calorie, so Samsung had to fix that. I say jokingly. The way they fixed that was to make their televisions voice interactive. So your TV's constantly listening. You can say TV on, TV off, channel 7, volume up, volume down, and your TV will respond. But in order for that to work, Samsung had to update their terms of service and condition. And they said, just be aware that anything you say to our television, we're recording and we're processing it. We're sending it out to a third party, and they're helping us control your TV. And then they ended their terms of service with a note. Warning, if there's anything sensitive that you wish to discuss in your own home, please don't say it in front of the television because we're listening. So now your TV comes with terms of service. So if you and your wife or boyfriend are lying in bed and now you've got this terms of service, like, oh, the TV's listening, watch us, right? It's like 1984, right, is coming to life. So, but there are other devices that people don't recognize as computers that absolutely are. Take the modern automobile. Over 200 chips in a car today. They control everything from the radio to the horn to the windshield wipers to the airbags and the ABS brakes. And most cars are online today one way or another through certain emergency transmission protocols and things like that, OnStar and the like. There are ways to get into these type of cars. And so hackers have targeted them successfully. About 3-4 weeks ago, there was a 60 Minutes episode where Leslie Stahl is driving down the street and remotely hackers turn on her windshield wipers. Then they honk the horn. Then they tell her, okay, stop by those orange cones there. And she says, okay. And now she's pounding on the brakes and she can't stop the car. A car is just a computer that we ride in. An airplane is a computer that we fly in. An elevator is a computer that we walk into. And pacemakers are computers that we put into our body. And going back to what we discussed earlier, all computers are hackable. Even these. So when we talk about the cyber threat, the bit that I think most folks don't get is when they think of cybercrime, they think, oh, identity theft, my credit card hacked, all that. My point is that that's just the beginning. Everything in our physical world will be hackable. Every device, a toaster will have software and firmware in it, right? Your blender will as well, as will your diabetic pump or the wearables that you were mentioning, your Fitbit. All of those will be wearing computers. There are pills now that you can take which are ingestible computers, right, that will measure various blood and all different types of measurements in your body, right? So
and transmit in real time.
Transmit in real time via Bluetooth back to your phone. That's all hackable. So there are pills that release how much medicine should be let out based upon them monitoring the acids in your stomach and seeing how much of that medicine that you are digesting. That's a computer. It talks via Bluetooth. It's hackable. Right? My friend Bertolt Meyer, I mentioned him in the book, great kid from Switzerland. He was born without a left arm. He has one of the most advanced bionic arms and bionic hands in the world. And one day he was visiting me in Silicon Valley. I said, Bertolt, tell me, how do you control your hand? Like, what if you need to fix something? He says, oh, no problem. I have an iPhone app that controls my arm. I said, well, how does it talk? He says, Bluetooth. I said, oh, that's cool. I said, can I see your phone? He says, sure. He hands me his phone. I start pushing buttons, and his hand starts going like this. Of course, I didn't need his phone because it uses Bluetooth. I could have just hacked into the Bluetooth. There was no password on it, and now I'm in control of his body parts. So the human body is even going online, which means that we as people are now and will be much more in the future through wearables, embeddables, ingestibles, and the like, subject to cyber attacks ourselves.
I'm going to have bad dreams tonight, but I'm sure
I'm here to save the world. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you went to the London School of Economics, so you spent time here in the UK and obviously in the States as well. What do you think what different perspectives do we have in the UK? I know we're actually more used to a surveillance state here, and it doesn't bother us as much, I think, because it was probably ushered in, especially in the city of London when there was IRA bombings in the 80s,
Right.
and now we just accept it as a fact.
Yes.
What other things do you see that are good or bad signs that the UK adopts versus the US?